Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is anger. We're going to take a look at two ways that we use this verb, but they're very much connected. Then the first way to use the verb anger is to describe someone becoming annoyed, outraged, hostile, or displeased. And our second definition is when we're causing someone else to feel those same feelings. So they're feeling mad, they're feeling annoyed, etc. You'll notice this verb has a very negative meaning to it, right? These are some kind of uncomfortable feelings. But you should know that anger is a regular verb. To make the progressive form, all we would need to do is add ing to form angering. And to make the past tense and participle forms of this verb, all we need to do is add ed. Our base verb, anger, ends in a voiced R sound. So our past tense and participle endings are just going to make a D sound. And we're not adding an extra syllable as we say these words. So the past tense form should just sound like this: angered, angered. Okay. Now, there are no phrasal verbs that we need to study with this particular verb. So that's going to allow us to focus on making sentences in the present perfect and the simple future. Let's start with the present perfect. We use this verb tense to describe an action that started in the past and continues into the present. You might also hear it being used to describe something that happened at an unknown point in the past. Sometimes we use it to talk about an action that is sort of continuing in the same time period. My negative sentence will be an example of that. To make present perfect sentences, you'll notice again we have two P's in the name of this verb tense. We're going to need two parts. So if our subject is I, you, we, or they, we're going to use have, and then we're going to use the participle form of our verb. If our subjects are he, she, or it, we'll use has, and then the participle form of the verb. Here's an example sentence. Rising gas prices have angered people around the world. Right? So it's caused them to feel mad, to feel kind of hostile about having to spend more money to fill their tanks. If I want to make a negative present perfect sentence, my structure will be to use my subject, and then have or has, whichever form matches that subject, then not, and then the participle form of the verb. Here's another example. He hasn't angered anyone else today. Okay? So in this sentence, again, I'm talking about a time period that hasn't been completed yet. So today is not over. That would be a reason for using the present perfect. And if I want to make a yes or no question in the present perfect, I will start with have or has, whichever form matches our subject. Subject comes next. Then we use the participle form of the verb. Here's an example. Have you angered your children by making them read this summer? Right? I know sometimes it feels no matter what a parent decides for their child or what they encourage, it's going to cause hostility or some negative feelings. Now let's take a look at the simple future. Today we're going to focus on using will. So the nice thing about this form is that our structure will be subject, will, and then the base verb. This is true no matter what that subject is. It's pretty common to hear people use will when they're making predictions or possibly even making a promise. An example here in the affirmative might be a pay increase for the CEO will anger all the entry-level workers. Okay? So this might be a prediction. So someone else giving advice to the CEO, don't increase your pay when all of the lowest paid workers aren't getting one either. Now, if you want to make a negative simple future sentence, To do that, we're going to have our subject, then will, not, and the base verb. You might hear people use the contraction won't, and that's in my example sentence here. These renovation hacks won't anger your landlord. Saw this in an article talking about different things renters can do to kind of make their apartments sort of better for them without kind of leaving lasting damage that might create a hostile feeling or displeasure from the landlord, the person who owns the property. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple future. To do this, we start with will, then we have our subject, and then the base verb. Here's another example. Will this new policy anger students? Sometimes here you might hear the verb upset used in a similar way. So we're talking about causing negative feelings, negative emotions. Now, let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb anger. The first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. Okay? So when we use the noun anger, we're talking about a very strong feeling, and it's a negative feeling where you're feeling either annoyed or displeased or hostile. So an example of this. In a fit of anger, she tore the paper into shreds. Okay, so someone's really upset, right? And we're describing what they're doing with those strong negative feelings. Another word you might hear is the adjective angry. This can be used in a couple different ways. The first ties back to our noun and our verb meanings here. So anytime we're feeling or showing strong annoyance, displeasure, or hostility. So an example of this, we might ask someone at their job, do you have to deal with angry customers? So customers who are annoyed, displeased, or hostile. A second way you might hear the adjective angry used is to describe something being sort of stormy. So we might describe the weather. You might hear people describing what the sky looks like, and that's in my example here. The sky looks angry today, right? So it looks like there's going to be a big storm. A third way you hear the adjective angry used is sometimes in connection to our health. So we might be describing some type of injury that is maybe red, maybe infected or inflamed. So an example of that, how are you going to heal that angry wound? Right. So the idea, this is not something that's maybe small, just like a little scrape, right? We've got something a little more serious. The last word we'll look at today is the adverb angrily. So when we use this adverb to either describe a verb or perhaps describe an adjective, we are talking about doing something in a manner that sort of connects to those feelings of hostility and annoyance. So we're acting on those strong negative emotions. An example of this. The golfer angrily threw his club after missing the putt. I saw a few examples of this weekend as I watched some highlights from sports. So athletes being frustrated, right? And we can kind of envision here this person throwing something because they have those strong negative feelings. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.